Well, I guess we'll just dive right into that one. And again, I'm Wes. Good to have John with us tonight. John, your initial reactions to tonight?
Well, I think it went about as expected. I don't think anyone who's seen these two teams over the past couple weeks really expected much different. You had one team in Miami that was kind of in a bit of a tailspin, losing Tyler Van Dyke to injury, not putting up much of a fight offensively, at least against Virginia. And then you had Florida State on the other side. You know, after some disappointment in the middle of the season there, but still showing some promise. Came out last week, didn't look great, but still dominated an overmatched Georgia Tech team, and you kind of saw more of the same tonight. Beat that ass.
I I think that is definitely what I was hoping for, obviously, and I think expected. But I think after the last couple of years, you don't want to get your hopes up too much. But having watched that Miami game or Miami team several times this year, and I know you and I were talking about them through the Virginia game last week and a few games this year, and it just definitely felt like a team that Florida State should do that too. And I think in some ways it was probably even worse than I expected. I think that score could have been way worse had Florida State wanted it to be. I was really hoping that they'd kind of keep that streak going for Miami of what is it now 8 or 9 quarters without a touchdown. That's pretty sweet to
You hate
keep
to see
that
it.
going.
I thought it was in jeopardy in the third quarter there when we had the backups in, but they had us. They had our back with the bad snap.
I would say that Florida State, as the announcer said it, Valdosta instead of Valdosta. I would say of the three Valdosta quarterbacks that there were in that game tonight, Rodemaker was by far the best. I mean, it's like Garcia would get in there, and it was just, I mean, that pick he threw towards the end of the first half, I don't know where he was throwing that. That was pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
it was a panic throw. It was just deer in the headlights, just like the rest of the Miami team tonight. Just completely overmatched, completely overwhelmed, and just pissed their pants on national television. And I'm here for it. Like,
Absolutely. Um,
yeah,
let's
I mean,
see.
it really is hard to pick one phase of the game to really talk about and be like, this is what we were able to expose. But I mean, the reality is we were pretty much able to do whatever we wanted. When our starters were in the game, I think Jordan Travis's stat line, he only attempted 12 passes, and he had over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then on the ground, you had you know Trey Benson, 15 carries, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. You know, our starting offense could have named the score, and so while I would have liked to hang 70 on them, or at least get the record for the series, right? Did you
Yeah.
see that graphic during the broadcast? So
Yes.
yeah, I think we tied for the third largest deficit with 2 years ago, but it was the other way for the COVID year where Miami beat the brakes off of us. So we just returned the favor, 42
And,
point
and
win.
you know, I think you and I talked about this earlier in the week, and I know I'd heard maybe it was Danny Cannell say it earlier that in the week that he kind of felt like tonight would be a reverse of the 2020 game, and it was.
He
Um,
nailed it. Yeah.
and Cannell is going to have some fun on Monday on his radio shows.
Oh yeah. He
Nobody
always does.
control like he can. Yeah. Um, yeah. It like he said as we were talking about it. You don't even really know what to say. I mean, 62 passing yards for Miami, 128 rushing yards, and most of those just kind of unbroken scrambles by Johnson.
Yeah.
And I haven't gone through and looked at it, but I think probably the majority of those rushing yards against backup defense for Florida State. I mean, you still hold them to under 200 total yards. Was never really pressured defensively. I mean, they made that nice pick on a ball that probably got away from Travis just a little bit, but other than that, I mean, you'd have to get really nitpicky. I feel like tonight. I mean, whatever happened with Span there towards the end of the game, that might have been the most negative thing on the game for Florida State.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as the game got away from them, the Miami players were getting pretty chippy. They were kind of looking to fight whoever they could pick one with, and it looked like was it on the goal line? When was that Span was getting the dressing down? I'd have to go back and look.
I think it was the second to last offensive series for Florida State. It was like I don't know, third and long.
Because it followed a punt, or it preceded a punt. They punted right after that.
Right.
Yeah, so it couldn't have been on the goal line. No, but it was like just some extracurricular stuff after the play, and Span bought into it, and so he got the flag, and then Norvell got in his face. But it was cool to see, going right back to him on the next offensive series after him and Norvell kind of like had it out on the sideline. They got him back in the game, got him refocused, and he put some punishment on a couple of Miami defensive backs after he caught that.
And I think that's what's been pretty definitely encouraging to see the last 2 weeks, is you see the second team get in, and I mean they're just playing hard, scoring that touchdown again with what probably when Ward's healthy, that's what, a fourth or fifth string running back.
Yeah.
And one thing that I really liked was, I think when it was still 31-3, it might have been 38-3, and there was a big, I say big, there was a third down or a fourth down.
It's so hard to remember. We were up by so much the whole game. It's hard to remember what exactly the score was.
But you see across the line of scrimmage, there's Norvell on the sideline. He's got his hands down on his knees, and I mean he's still in that game. I mean, he coached from whistle to whistle, and I think that the passion he has shown, and just he's not taking a play off, regardless of what the score is, regardless if we're down 30-14 to Clemson, and it looks really dim going to the fourth quarter, or we're up 38-3. And I think that's what's aided this turnaround, is having someone that committed. I say turnaround, I mean, hopeful turnaround. Definitely being 6-3. I was joking earlier, it's been a while since game 9 we could say, hey, we're bowl eligible.
I mean, I think at this point the evidence is overwhelming that we are in fact going in the right direction, and that 3-game skid we had was more of an anomaly than it's going to be, the expectation going forward. And when you have a team that hasn't had a whole lot of success over their career, sometimes it takes a little while, right, to learn how to win. And so you're going to have some frustration. I mean, that NC State game, like that's that's going to be with me for a while. Like,
it was a hard one.
But in a way, it kind of reminds me of the one we had in back in 2012, right? Where we were on the cusp of being good, or being great, and then we were just kind of still having to figure out how to put teams away that college football is fickle. Like, even less talented teams hang with more talented teams all the time, and so being able to put teams away like that it's something you got to learn. And obviously, like, we didn't have any issues putting away a less talented team tonight.
and yeah, that 2012 game, I know we've talked about it a lot over the years, but you take the box score off of the TV during that game, and you feel like Florida State's up 20, 30 points in that game.
Yeah.
And I forget all the breakdowns there, but Florida State had like 535 total offensive yards. I don't even know if NC State had over 250. Very frustrating game. And yeah, that was pretty comparable this year. And I mean, I guess if there's anything,
We don't need to dwell on that tonight.
what does it say? If there's anything optimistic
Let's
that you
not
can
go
take
there.
from the NC State game this year is that it's not like we took their quarterback out. We take out Leary, and they haven't tumbled like I thought they were going to. I didn't. Definitely before last week, I wouldn't have expected them to be Wake tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on at Wake. I didn't watch a lot of that game tonight. It being at the same time at Florida State, but
I
obviously
don't know.
something's not going well.
Wake pisses me off. It's like against us. It's like the receivers against us. It's like every 50-50 ball just it was 80-20 where they're making circus catches all over our defensive backs, whether it was like the touchdown or the big third down conversion to ice the game at the very end. It's like so many catches in that game. It felt like every time Hartman put the ball in the air, his receivers were making plays. And then ever since then, they've just been terrible. And so Wake is just very frustrating to me. That watching that offense, especially when you think that they're going to do it against everybody and then they don't, it just makes it even more frustrating that they were able to be successful against us.
And there's something a little disheartening about feeling like we, maybe this is being a little biased, but feeling like Florida State should have beaten Clemson, and then Clemson just gets boat raced by a team that lost to Stanford. I just don't understand that. Very bad Stanford team.
Very bad. I don't like where the tone of this is heading right now. We just blew out Miami 45-3. Okay. Yeah. Our backup quarterback had one fewer passing yard than Tyler Van Dyke. So we can take some solace in that. And can we talk just for a second? With? What's that?
What Van Dyke 30 yards?
24 yards pass. Out of the team's 62. Because that's all the passing yards they could accumulate against us tonight. It really was just an absolute inept showing from the Miami offense. And I don't know how Tyler Van Dyke was on the field. Like, you feel bad for the guy. It's like if he's got receivers open and he just physically cannot make the throw because his shoulder is falling apart. What are they doing rolling that guy out there?
I don't know. It was not smart. It's clear he's by far the best quarterback that they have. I think, was it Curry? Is that how you say his name? The true freshman?
Yeah.
He has definitely potential. Obviously, he's looking just to run right now when that opportunity is given. But yeah, I mean, they obviously had immense respect for Johnny Wilson coming in. I mean, that pass interference on him in the end zone, and that was crazy. Just tugging on him.
I mean, they didn't want to get beat, but then did you notice how many of the players, I don't want to say Miami's faking injury, but I feel like a lot of their players were looking for a reason to quit. And a lot of the players that were injured were trying to play through something. And then when they're getting down, 2-3 touchdowns, maybe it's not worth it to try to play through that injury, right? Your adrenaline starts falling a bit. Maybe you start feeling a little more of a twinge in that knee that's been bothering you. Why not just sit the rest of this one out? Like, I really felt like Miami quit, and it was wonderful to watch in real time. But it was like they're really banged up, and it was kind of sad watching some of them out there trying to tough it out. Van Dyke in particular,
Yeah.
like especially because when he got hurt making that throw out of the end zone, where it's like you couldn't quite see it. Well, I couldn't quite see it in real time, but I thought maybe like Verse had taken a shot because he was rolling out to the sideline, right, and Verse was there trailing, and the pass was a terrible pass. He's throwing it away, and I thought Verse might have taken a shot at him and like driven him to the ground. And that's why he was hurt. But then they show the replay, and it's like Verse like literally just like touched him on the shoulder,
On the opposite shoulder.
on the yeah. It was more of a like a little push away. It wasn't like a malicious hit of any kind. And it's like he's like, wincing off the field. Like I'm thinking there's no way this guy's coming back. And they show him like throwing on the sideline, and he's taking snaps the next series. What are they doing? It's like
That's a good question.
It's like the Hurricanes hired, the Dolphins concussion protocol guy to he's like, yeah, the shoulder's fine, guys. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry, he can't lift it. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
I really don't know. That didn't make any sense. And I agree with you. It didn't seem like a lot of the guys wanted to be out there. I mean, guys just kind of going through the motion. Who was the offensive lineman for them that got hurt? Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever came in for him was just awful. He was getting beat every play.
Yeah.
Every single play. And like you said, I mean, not a whole lot to say. Florida State comes right out the gate, gets that big touchdown to Pokey. Wasn't that one Pokey?
Yep. So on the interception, I think that they must have seen something on film, because that looked like the exact same play that they scored on in the interception to me. And so I'm wondering if they saw something, and it was if Jordan saw a certain look, he was just supposed to just loose it. And the second time, obviously the guy was there, made the play, made the pick, but fortunately it was like on the 1 yard line, and so it ended up not really costing us much at all. But
and it was good to see Trey Benson to continue to do Trey Benson things. I mean, that guy's just an animal.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously had a little something, playing against Cristobal, his former offensive coordinator. He got 6 carries last year, and so he obviously came in with something to prove. And I don't know if it's like all the criticism Norvell's gotten about his play calling on inside the 5, but or a combination of like Benson wanting the ball, or just like Norvell got the message, keep it simple, but they just kept slamming him into the goal. Like even when we weren't getting any push, we were still just like try to find a way, and he barely got in on that. I think it was his second touchdown, right?
Second touchdown.
Yeah.
And it was it the third or fourth one? I really liked that. It was a third and goal from the 1 or the 2 that
The one to
kind of
DJ Lundy.
Yeah, that dump to Lundy.
Yeah.
I love that play call.
Yeah.
I was expecting the end around to Micah.
But so that's the thing. If it doesn't work, it's getting too cute, right?
That's true.
Why are you throwing the ball to a linebacker?
Wide open, and Travis just executed that perfectly. Waited.
Yeah. And by the way, while we're talking about the end around, Ohio State like tied up the game against Northwestern on the exact same end around play.
That's true. What an ugly game that was. I mean, I know we're not discussing that one, but 21-7, 40-mile-an-hour winds.
I mean, there's only so much you can talk about when you beat your rival's ass 45-3. There's really only so much you can talk about. You have to start talking about something else.
Well, like I had
It's like,
a buddy text me and said, "Hey, Florida State can say they beat the team that just beat Bama."
yeah. I
They,
mean,
they showed that play. I don't know if you switched over to the. I think you were driving the end of the Bama game. They did show the missed extra point against Florida State in that LSU game.
blocked extra
The
point.
block, sorry, blocked. Yes.
We made the play. It wasn't just a missed kick.
I was still so mad it got to that point, but man.
Yep.
So I guess like you said, not a whole lot to dissect. It didn't give us a whole lot to say too much. Basically, just everything you could hope for. You could do that to your rival over a year. You'd be pretty excited. But I guess coming up next, at least on paper, pretty big one. Syracuse, right?
Yep.
So any initial thoughts on that one?
I mean, a lot of it depends on the health of Garrett Schrader. You know, he didn't play today against Pitt, and they lost by 10, I think, to Pitt.
I think so. I was just looking at that.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of it depends on if he's healthy or not. But honestly, it shouldn't matter. Like if we bring the same level of intensity that we brought tonight, there's no one on the rest. There's no one on the rest of our schedule that can hang with us. But
I don't think so.
But that's been the real kind of issue with this team, right? It's like they haven't dealt that well with expectation. It's like when everyone was expecting 5-win team this year. The expectations were low coming into the year. We start out 4-0. No one had us. Well, not no one, but few people had us going 4-0. And then you have better opponents, more pressure. The team kind of they kind of choked a bit, and that's fine. They're still learning, just like we were talking about earlier. They're still learning how to win, and so I've been accused of being a bit of an apologist for Norvell, but I feel very validated by the win tonight, and I'm just going to extrapolate this performance to the rest of the season. So yeah, Syracuse has no chance. Lay the points.
Yeah. I mean, I still was a little perplexed that the line for the Miami game was just Florida State -7.5. Just didn't make a whole lot of sense. We'll be interested. I mean, I would be pretty surprised if it's not a double-digit spread. Syracuse has been pretty interesting. They jumped to 6-0. I don't know if I like the word fraudulent because they obviously found ways to win in some games that they weren't expected to win. That Purdue game kept things close with, at the time, top 5 Clemson team. Probably won't be come Tuesday night.
Hate to see it.
But what's been weird, I think, about Syracuse is, Tucker was such a big part of that offense, and getting to 6-0, and like today, he gets 10 carries for 19 yards, 1.9 carries, or 1.9 yards a carry. And then I think the backup, he's got a really long name, Del Rio.
That's good. Just stick with Del Rio. There we
Del
go.
Rio, yeah. 14 carries for 7 yards. So they had 25 carries for 25 yards today. And nice. I know the Pitt defense is pretty good. And then through the air, 120 yards. So 145 total offensive yards, 9 points. I'm hoping for a repeat performance like tonight. And I think that should probably be the expectation.
Yeah. No, I mean, if Schrader doesn't play, we should roll. Like, there's not, I'm not gonna say there's not any point spread I wouldn't stay away from, but we'll likely be, if Schrader's out, we'll probably be nearly 2 touchdown favorites. That sound about right to you?
I would think so.
Yeah,
That's
just
where I would have it.
given how anemic their offense has been since Schrader got hurt, I just can't see the line being anywhere close to single digits. But I don't know.
I
There's
would
not a
definitely say,
reasonable number I wouldn't lay if Schrader's out. But if he plays, that is a little bit different. Just our defenses looked really good against two really bad offenses the last 2 weeks. I don't think I'm quite ready to trust it. So that's why I think whether we get to 8 or 9 wins is really going to depend on how our defense plays against Florida, because they're a bit of a wild card on offense. They can, at times, it looks like Richardson should be a Heisman candidate, and they can score on anyone. But then other times he just straight up throws the ball to the other team. So
oh
it's really
yeah,
hard to know what you're going to get out of Florida, and what you're going to get out of our defense. And so we've shown that we can overwhelm terrible offenses, which is great, because that is not something that we have done in the past couple of years. So
no,
at least we can do that. But if Schrader doesn't play, I don't see how it's close.
I would totally agree with that. I mean, I wouldn't even if Schrader doesn't play, I wouldn't quite maybe expect like what was the Georgia Tech line? It ended up at like 23.5. I wouldn't expect it to probably get over 20. Um, I still don't know if I wouldn't maybe take that, but it gets a little bit more dangerous. But definitely, I mean, obviously, Pitt's got a good defense, but Pitt doesn't have the type of defense that should be holding you to 25 yards
Yeah.
rushing.
Well, if we can dial in on Tucker, especially getting Lovett back and playing back at a high level, I have a hard time believing that a running back is going to be able to beat us by himself. And so it's just a different game if Schrader plays if he doesn't.
Yeah, we had a tough time with Schrader last year. That was
Yeah.
the Syracuse game. If I'm right, is the game that broke the 4-game losing skid last year,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty
That's right.
close.
Yeah.
Right down to
Big
the
field
end.
goal at the end. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, but on the whole, just a great day of college football. I guess that the whole Florida A&M game kind of won for Florida State fans. I want both teams to lose, but you
Yeah.
know, I still think that watching Jimbo lose in that one was pretty sweet. I mean, 3-6. You have a potential buyout. What is that buyout at now? 88 or
I
90?
think it's close to $90 million.
I know when Harson got fired this week, they said that the total now, when you add up the buyout for Frost and all the guys that have been fired, it was
Mm-hmm.
74 million. And then they said, but that still wouldn't be enough to buy out Jimbo Fisher. And he's 3-6. And he's got 5 stars smoking weed in the opposing team's locker room. 6 guys today had the flu right before game time, right?
You hate to see it, man. It's just terrible. Hate to see him going through that. Thoughts and prayers go out to Jimbo. Just hate to see it.
And I don't know the rest of their schedule. I think they still have LSU, don't they?
I don't know.
But more than likely
I think so. I think so.
won't be bowl eligible. I can't see them beating LSU.
Yeah, it's really, really, difficult to not take a lot of pleasure in that. Just given how all of it, we don't need to go into that.
No,
It's been a great day, both from the Florida State side and you know enjoying the pain of your rivals. Well, I guess Florida won, but I don't know. It was at Jimbo's expense, so is it really a loss? And then Bama losing, Tennessee getting exposed. It just Clemson losing. God, losing to the team that lost to Marshall. So we didn't beat them, but they're still not any good. So I can take some solace in that.
So you have Oklahoma State that was 18 loses, and you've got
They shouldn't be
Syracuse.
ranked.
No, Syracuse at
Yeah.
22, Wake at 20, and so I guess one of those questions would be: is there a shot of Florida State being ranked?
I could see us being ranked, kind of the 23 to 25 range. I don't think we jump Wake or Syracuse, but maybe. I don't know. We looked really good and they looked really bad. So even though we lost to Wake, again, they're just trending the wrong direction. And so I don't know if you followed Wake closer than I have, but I don't know what caused him to fall off so hard.
I have no clue. I mean, it's like
key injuries or what.
It's like some kind of Space Jam type of thing happened to Hartman halftime of last week's game. Somebody took his powers, and he does not look like the same player.
Yeah, jerk. He carves us up.
Why couldn't that have happened?
And then plays like a chump. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I guess looking at it real quick, Baylor would probably be one that would be in the contention to be ranked. Let's see, Maryland lost. I would hope Notre Dame wouldn't be ranked above us, but I guess it's always a possibility.
I mean, they did just knock off Clemson, convincing fashion. Yeah.
Man, crazy. And like you said earlier, we're not on the show, but when we were talking, I don't know if 2 through 4 really matters at this point. I mean, it seems kind of like Georgia's to take, and the only thing that maybe could really beat Georgia is Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I think player for player, maybe Alabama, Ohio State may be able to match them, just from like a pure talent perspective. But the Georgia defensive scheme is just so much better than everybody else, and it's probably a combination of the talent and the scheme. But Kirby Smart he's just a genius. Like
just a step ahead. It's crazy. Well,
it's like it's just you don't see them making the same types of bonehead mistakes that Bama makes now, which is not something you really ever thought you'd say. But there kind of has been a shift in Bama's culture from being this hard-nosed, run the ball, play defense type of program to more of they do the spread offense. They put up a ton of points. Defense is still good, but there's always a team or two that can take advantage of something about Alabama. And this year was Tennessee that took advantage. And so typically with Georgia, it's the offense lets them down. It's rare that someone puts up a big offensive number against Georgia. And just for that reason, when they do have a team that can put up points like this one, it makes them really hard to beat.
Absolutely. And I was thinking when you said that there, just about the lack of discipline and all. I mean, I did feel like, especially when a game like that gets out of hand, Florida State game tonight, a rivalry like that, things can get chippy, and it was headed that way. I did think it was impressive and appreciated. Florida State only 4 penalties tonight. At least one or two of those came towards the end of the game with some of that chippiness. And I think that's one thing that we've seen as the season's gone on. Really been cleaning that up quite a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the trends that you like to see. I mean, it's a game of inches, and so if you've got a team that's not shooting themselves in the foot, it makes it a lot easier to win and a lot easier to watch, frankly. Like,
well, I remember watching that Miami game with you in 2020, and it feels like just a complete 180 reversal in just 2 years, and that was tough to watch. That was a tough game to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah. I don't actually remember watching that game. Like I had quite a bit to drink during that one.
Well, now
Yeah,
Blackman is Arkansas State's problem, but I guess
that's right.
actually having a pretty good season. From what I've heard, I think Arkansas State has like 2 wins, but um, I'm glad we have Jordan Travis, and it's been neat to see that progression. Obviously looked more like his LSU self tonight than he did through that 3-game skid. I mean, his confidence tonight was just through the roof.
Hmm.
We just
Yeah,
keep
he came
building
to
off
play.
that. He did.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you got any closing remarks?
No, I mean, I am personally very excited to see what this team's capable of, and now that they are 100% going to cover my 6.5 win over for the season.
Yeah,
The rest is
because
kind of gravy.
absolutely. Yeah, if that doesn't hit, something seriously goes wrong in these last 3 games.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
don't see it. Um, would be pretty disappointed to even drop one of those. I mean, obviously, Florida, again, like you said earlier, rival game. Richardson's had some great moments, but he's definitely not Jaden Daniels, and
Hmm.
has not really proven he can pass that well, or at least not to the right team.
Yeah.
Been pretty good about throwing to the other team.
Hmm.
But yeah, well, I guess we'll get back on here next week, hopefully talking about another beatdown of Syracuse, and maybe continue this trend of no touchdowns. That'd be nice. That's enjoyable to not see the other team get the end zone.
They're killing me with these kickoffs, though. You know, I'm not 21 anymore. Throwing these like 7:30, 8 o'clock kicks at me. That means we're not getting done here. I mean, it's way past my bedtime now.
We'll let you get to bed. Have they announced the kickoff for next week? Let's see.
Yeah, I think we got eight
Yeah,
o'clock
another
kick.
8 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be seeing you at midnight.
Well, hey, at least the Louisiana game is surefire at 12 o'clock. So we'll be doing this at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Sounds awesome.
All right. You
All
have a
right,
good
dude.
night. Thanks for listening,
All right,
guys.
man. You too.
All right.